Now, how to enhance your marks? It's not just through the quality of your analysis and doing heaps of it and getting better and better at it, but it's also about being selective with your PLTs for each body paragraph and each argument. So don't just look for the obvious PLTs like rhetorical questions, statistical evidence, expert opinion, anecdotes. Find the subtle ones as well. Discuss connotations, discuss appeals, discuss sarcasm, irony, humor, to get those high marks. Obviously, though, it should be a balance. So sometimes those simple PLTs, a lot of the time, those simple PLTs are very, very important too. So I would try to have the simple ones that are essential to the argument and that I can have a strong analysis for. And then the other half, I would make sure in my body paragraph are subtle PLTs that are being analyzed. Look at the structure of the sentence or paragraph, use of specific words, etc. Go above just, the textbook ones. Look for things like metaphors, symbols, alliteration, anything else that sticks out and could be relevant. Don't forget tone and tonal shifts. Tonal shift is an expectation that you find and analyze on the exam if you want to get high marks, and there usually will be one or two sustained tonal shifts in an argument analysis article that you should find, name, and analyze. As well as connotative analysis is an expectation. And just like with tone, where you are not permitted to say the tone has shifted from X tone to Y tone, you need to do that properly. You need to quote to what the tone has shifted to as well. You don't just identify from what tone to what kind of tone it's shifted, but you need to find some descriptive or emotive language to quote with that to indicate the tonal shift. Same thing with connotations. It's not enough to say and end at positive connotations or negative connotations. You need to go beyond that. So the positive connotations contained in quote are associated with, and then you need to provide, if you're saying negative, so what connotations, what imagery does it raise in someone's mind when they're reading the article with that quote or that piece of information. So when you say something is positive or negative connotations, you actually need to describe what kind of connotations it incites in someone's mind as they read that. So looking at an example here of trying to find subtle PLTs, the darling is suffering from record low flows, fish deaths, and algal blooms. So a mid-scoring student might just say that there's listing here for those low flows, fish deaths, and algal blooms. That's quite relevant too, but let's make it more complex. There's jargon of low flows and algal blooms, but there's also imagery. And even more importantly, there's connotations attached to suffering, those negative connotations. And there's also personification. They're making the darling, which is just a body of water, sound like it's alive because it's suffering. So those would be more valuable to analyze than just that listing we spotted at the beginning. Okay, so now we actually apply our process of analysis. Looking at a letter to the editor, we will try to complete the what, how, why process of analysis. Okay. So let's read it together first. This is about COVID, but it's still like highly relevant. This example is itself is very, very good. So, letter to the editor, stop the fear mongering so we can build confidence. I'm 53 and, like many people, hesitated about getting the jab because the risks seem to outweigh the benefits in a COVID-free community. Like many, when the latest outbreak occurred in Victoria, I had my doctor talk sense into me and got myself in for my first vaccination. There was a lot of information, but I trusted the advice we were being given. I'm 11 days post-jab, and am still staying vigilant for any side effects. Now I read that the threshold has moved, and those under 60 are advised to ask for the Pfizer vaccine. What is someone like me supposed to feel? In this whole process, I feel as though we know too little, too much. We need to stop fear-mongering and build confidence if we are to have any hope of achieving herd immunity. And then the person signed off there. So A great planning or practice task you could do, obviously I'd recommend doing this with a bigger article, was just to complete the what, how, why process of analysis on an article based on dot points. So kind of writing a dot point essay. But we will look at this being applied for a few different PLTs just so you can have a revision of exactly how you do the process of analysis. So this has the feel, think, do here. So this is more focusing around intended effect, but it's really similar to the process of analysis we do for the what, how, why. So you can modify that. So number one, we'll take the personal anecdote, or you could also say that's where she's trying to build rapport. I'm 53, like many people, hesitated about getting the jab. The audience for this statement is older Australians who are currently skeptical about getting the AstraZeneca vaccine. How does that make them feel? By creating a personal anecdote and talking about herself and how she fits into the issue, she's allowing the audience to feel more heard, validated, and understood, in a sense of companionship. That's what that word means. With the audience that might be in a similar boat. She also aims to make them think. This is kind of like the why process of analysis. This component. Think that vaccine hesitancy is quite widespread in the Australian community, and they're not alone in feeling this way. It's okay to doubt it, it's okay to second guess it and feel worried. What does she make them want to do to instill more trust in herself as someone who understands people's stance? So you can see the benefit of doing a really extended analysis like this, because you will have so many ideas and you'll practice becoming a quick thinker in argument analysis. And also, if you have so many ideas, students, that's exactly what students struggle with a lot of the time. Students are not creative enough in their argument analysis essays, and I often see with my students as well, they'll have this really significant amount of repetition of the same ideas in their essay and struggle to come up with anything new to say or valuable ideas. So practice doing detailed dot point analyses like this. It not also it also helps to mitigate that and fix that issue, but it also helps you to practice being selective. So if I apply the whole process of analysis, which one of these ideas is the best and the one that I want to put in my essay? Well, probably the think for this one, as well as the fact that she aims to instill more trust, is the ones that I would mention. Looking at another example, rhetorical question: what is someone like me supposed to feel? Again, definitely targeting older Australians. People that also thought it was safe to take the AstraZeneca vaccine and there wouldn't be any side effects. And how's that going to make them feel? Well, betrayed, skeptical, and doubtful of their decisions, and especially the government. It's going to make them think that their vaccine hesitancy is justified because there's constant fluxes or changes in health advice that the government provides. And it's going to, in terms of what it makes them do, well, it makes them stop blaming themselves or their doctors for their vaccine hesitancy and instead feel as though they should blame the government. And here we see an ellipsis, so that's where we see that triple dot. And also a juxtaposition. In this whole process, I feel as though we know too little, too much. So the contradicting statement, the juxtaposition, is in too little, too much. This one is super implicit. This is definitely a subtle PLT that I would try to analyze for a high scoring response if I was writing an argument analysis like body paragraph on this letter to the editor. The audience here is different. It's actually the politicians who are responsible for delivering public health advice. She's trying to make them feel ashamed and guilty because they spread all of this misinformation about the vaccine being safe and then they change that information. It's trying to make them think that they've caused immense distress, which is emphasized by the ellipses. That would be a pause if this was being delivered verbally. To the Australian public by constantly changing the health advice. And it's trying to make them, in terms of reflect on the impact that their fickle public communication has actually had on Australians and the harm it has caused.